Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a horror romance film, Ghost Wife. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a girl tied up in a temple room. A monk sits in front of her praying. He shouts at the girl, telling the demon inside to leave her body. The girl resists and tries to lash out. The monks speed up his prayer, and the demon leaves the girl's body. Back in the city, high schooler Nard leaves her house for school. She walks out of her apartment and is greeted by her neighbors who remind her to focus on her studies and avoid hormone-rich boys altogether. She arrives at the bus stop and waits, worried that she might be late for school. Meanwhile, Mac, who is in the same school as Nard, also arrives at the bus stop. They start talking, and Mac introduces himself as her senior in school. Later on, they become good friends over the school year, eating and hanging out on campus together. One day, while Nard is at home, she receives a call from Mac. He tells her that he is outside, and she comes down to meet him. He offers to tutor Nard, and she accepts. They begin studying together outside, but move to Nard's room when Nard sees the neighbors staring and gossiping about them. Eventually, the two fall in love with each other. They continue bonding in school and their study sessions. One of their study sessions finishes late at night, and Mac spends the night in Nard's apartment. She divides the room with red tape and tells Mac that she will kick his smelly ass out if he dares to cross the hormone-forbidden line. Mac accepts, and they spend the night together, unfortunately without a hormone game. One day, Nard is on a phone call with her mother. Mac enters the room and tries to mess with Nard. She gets up to leave the room, but is blocked by Mac. Suddenly, Nard stumbles backward and pulls Mac with her. They fall onto the bed, and Mac kisses her. After their fast but nasty hormone game, Nard is worried about her future. But Mac reassures her and tells her that he loves her and he will never leave her. The following week, Nard is confronted by Mac's cash-rich mother in school. She gets angry at Nard for distracting Mac and sucking all his hormone attention from his studies. The mother even insults her by calling her a gold digger. She tells Nard that she should be ashamed for having Mac over at her apartment every night. Eventually, a teacher comes along and stops the mother, while Mac and Nard slip away. Later that evening, Nard's mother asks her who her boyfriend is, but Nard keeps silent. The mother tells her to just break up with him and focus on her studies since his rich parents do not approve of her anyway. While studying, Nard receives a text from Mac. He says that his mother wouldn't listen to him, and Nard tells him that her mother is the same. But Nard tells him that she won't follow her mother's order to break up with him. The following morning, Mac is stopped by his mother from going to school. She tells him that she is sending him abroad to live with his aunt. Mac lets Nard know that his mom has forced him to quit school and leave the country. He tells Nard to wait for him. When Nard arrives home that night, she cries in her mother's arms, telling her that Mac is gone. A week later, Nard is nauseous and keeps on vomiting. She has just taken a pregnancy test and found out that she is pregnant. She hides the test in her towel, but it falls out and her mother picks it up. She gets angry at Nard, and Nard apologizes desperately. Nard says that her boyfriend doesn't know, and the mother tells her to get the baby aborted, since they will likely break up in the future. Later on, Nard and her mother go to the illegal abortion clinic. The clinic is scary, but Nard perseveres and they start the procedure. The operator prepares Nard and begins pulling out the fetus inside her. During the procedure, Nard is reminded of her and Mac's love. However, she starts to bleed out and her vision goes black. She wakes up, standing beside the operating table. She is out of her body as her body is on the table, and she watches as the doctors all panic at her death and runs out of the room. Her mother enters the room and tries to wake the body up. Realizing that she has died, Nard breaks down. Her stomach starts to hurt and blood runs down her leg. Her bloody unborn fetus drops to the floor. She picks it up and screams when the fetus moves. After Nard's death, her mother goes to clean out the apartment. She reaches for a photo of her and Nard. Suddenly, the frame falls to the ground and the mother is startled. She calls out to Nard, and things in the room begin to shake violently and fall. She tells the spirit to come home with her, but the room only continues to get messier. That night, the landlord informs the other tenants that Nard has passed away. They don't believe her and even say that they heard noises in her room just a while ago. The landlord insists that she has died, and the tenants are freaked out. The landlord falls asleep after working in her office, but is awakened by the noise from the television. She closes the TV, but doesn't notice Nard's ghost standing behind her. The TV turns on, and when she turns it off, she gets startled by the ghost behind her. She looks behind, but the room is empty. The TV suddenly turns back on, and the landlord turns it off. She then sees the ghost face to face and wakes up, finding that it was all a nightmare. The landlord calls Nard's mother and tells her to quickly lay Nard to rest, as the tenants will get scared of a ghost in the building. Meanwhile, Mac calls Nard after spamming her with messages from abroad, but her cell cannot be contacted. Nard's mother calls a psychic to lay her daughter's soul to rest. They return to the abortion clinic, which was abandoned after the failed abortion. Inside, she sees Nard through the mirror and starts praying. Inside the abortion room, the psychic speaks to Nard. The tables clatter, and a chair slide across the room. Nard's ghost appears covered in cloth on the operating table and sits up straight while pointing to the psychic. Tables start hitting the shitty psychic, but she successfully escapes. On the way out, she tells the mother to leave Nard's spirit alone, as it has become evil. Later that evening, Nard haunts a tenant. The lady finds a baby in the corridor while Nard looms behind her. She is startled by Nard, who has appeared in front of her, and runs away. Nard grabs the stroller and goes to her old room with the baby. Max secures a permission slip from his aunt to go camping. In reality, he plans to visit Nard. He texts Nard and tells her that he is finally coming home. Back in the apartment, two men are drinking. One of the men goes to buy food, but his friend stops him as he might run into the ghost. He continues anyway and takes the elevator. Nard appears in the elevator beside him. Too drunk to recognize that she is a ghost, she starts to tickle her baby. But the baby bites his finger, and he hurriedly exits the elevator. The next day, the tenants complain to the landlord about the ghost. She tries to call the mother, but only hears Nard's ghostly voice, telling her to leave her alone. The landlord decides to call a shaman to banish Nard. The shaman later arrives with his cameraman. They see the baby stroller, and the shaman tells the cameraman to check it out. He sees a baby inside and picks it up. The baby transforms into a ghost baby and scares the cameraman. They arrive at Nard's room, and the door closes behind them. They turn to see Nard's ghost. The shaman starts praying and lays his cane on Nard, but she resists. The cameraman starts hitting the baby with a stick, but the baby disappears. The shaman tries to pull out the blade hidden in the cane, but is stopped by Nard. He starts praying, but his hands are contorted, and he starts strangling himself. Nard forces the shitty shaman out of the room, and he runs his smelly ass away with the cameraman. Days later, Mac returns to the apartment. He enters the room and sees Nard with the baby in their normal appearance, unaware that she has died. Nard apologizes and tells him that she was afraid that he would hate her if he found out that she was pregnant, but he reassures her that he loves her no matter what. The next day, Mac invites Nard to eat out, but she refuses. He instead goes out to buy food for them and runs into one of the building's chatty tenants, nicknamed Ms. Gossip. She tries to tell him about Nard's death, but cannot do it. Later that day, he confronts Ms. Gossip and another neighbor about why they keep staring at him and Nard so often. Ms. Gossip tries to tell him that the real Nard he is with is a ghost, but the other guy shuts up her big mouth in time. He tells her not to upset the peace, and that it's better if Mac is the only one in danger. Mac returns and tells Nard that he will marry her, so they should tell their parents about everything. Nard refuses and tells him to let her enjoy their happy family moment for now. Mac goes to meet with his mother anyway and tell her about their plans. In shock, the mother tells him about Nard's death, but he doesn't believe her smelly bullshit. He tells her that he has just seen her, but the mother insists on Nard's death, and he storms out. When he returns, Mac takes a picture of the cubey fat baby. Without any beauty effect turned on, he can see the ghostly baby on the screen for the first time and drops his phone in surprise, shattering the screen of the shitty phone. Convinced that it was only his imagination and the malfunction of its beauty function, he picks up the phone and takes a picture with the entire family. On the other side, the remaining tenants of the building get together and gossip about how Nard has calmed down since Mac's return. Ms. Gossip insults Nard's spirit and says that the dead shouldn't be with the living. Later that night, Ms. Gossip is returning to her room when the lights begin to flicker. Nard is at the end of the hallway. She slowly approaches Ms. Gossip, and they end up face to face. Ms. Gossip panics and runs into her room with her big mouth shut while Nard bangs on the door from outside. She starts praying, and the banging subsides. She peeks outside with her big eyes, but no one is there. The next day, the tenants watch a video of an expertised monk performing an exorcism. They agree to call in the monk to finally defeat Nard. Ms. Gossip and the landlord take a boat ride to the temple, where the old monk is performing an exorcism. After some introduction, the monk discovers that the spirit is that of a pregnant woman with a strong bond to a living person. He says that it's a big challenge to deal with ghosts stuck in limbo, but he still agrees to the job, possibly because it's a good chance to practice his dying expertise. The monk arrives at the apartment at night and confirms a strong presence inside the building. He orders the tenants not to enter the building until he comes out. Sensing the monk's presence, Nard tells Mac to take the baby to the rooftop. He leaves with the baby and says that he will return in 30 minutes. As the monk enters the building, the doors violently swing open. He starts praying and holds out his worn-out prayer beads. Shortly after, the doors become still and the lights stop flickering. He enters Nard's room, and Nard appears before him. She grabs at the annoying monk, but is thrown against the wall. When she tries again, she is lifted into the air. He brings her down to the floor and brings out a spool of white string. On the floor, Nard is forced into a prayer stance. The monk begins wrapping the string around her and pulls out a knife. Fortunately, Mac arrives and stops him in time. The monk tells him that she is not human anymore. Mac turns to the baby in his arms, sees the ghost baby, and panics. Before the monk says more, Nard begs him not to tell Mac that she is a ghost. The monk tells Mac anyway to close his eyes and pray thrice, before opening his eyes again if he wants to see her true form. Mac closes his eyes and remembers the ghost fat baby's picture on his phone. He finally sees the room's abandoned appearance. After seeing Nard and the baby standing by the balcony, he is terrified a lot and runs away with his smelly ass detached. Out on the street, however, Nard stops running. He remembers Nard's unselfish love and the moments they share as a couple. He remembers his promise never to stop loving her and runs back to the apartment. On the way back, however, he is run over by a car, but he miraculously walks away and continues running back to the apartment. However, this is only his spirit, as his physical body is dead on the ground in front of the car. Mac's spirit finally arrives at the apartment. He enters the room, which is back to its normal state. He picks up the shitty phone he dropped earlier, which is now fixed. He finally opens his eyes. Nard tells him that she didn't want him to be sad, so she hid her death from him. The annoying monk tells them that he must banish their spirits, as they do not belong to the world of the living. They beg him to let them stay, as they have just started being a family. The monk tells them that they will be outcasts that are hated by everyone in that way, but they accept. They promise not to disturb anyone, as long as they can stay as a family. Though never experiencing any true love before, the virgin monk recognizes their love as real and agrees to grant their wish on the condition that they should never leave their room. They accept the terms, and the monk sets Nard free. They thank the annoying monk for letting them stay as a complete family. The next day, 3 marks appear on Nard's door, sealing the 3 spirits inside. After their funeral, life in the apartment continues as normal, both for Nard's ghost family and for the rest of the living tenants, with all their gossipy mouths shut. This is Daniel's CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.